Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. The morning of Uche's wedding dawned with a golden sun, its rays slipping through the thin curtains of Amara's tiny bedroom. She sat on the edge of her bed, carefully lifting the pale lavender gown she had saved for months to buy. It wasn't extravagant like Vivian's shimmering dresses, but it was elegant. Simple chiffon with a modest neckline and a flowing skirt. She had imagined herself walking into the wedding hall in it, not as a maid, not as a shadow, but as her brother's sister, part of the family. Her hands trembled as she held the dress up against her frame in the cracked mirror leaning against the wall. A faint smile touched her lips. Father would have been proud. She could almost hear his voice. Amara, you carry dignity better than any jewel. She quickly dressed, smoothing the fabric down, and pinned her hair into a neat bun. For once, she felt like she belonged to the celebration. She had even polished her worn shoes the night before until they shone. Her joy lasted only until she stepped into the grand living room, where Helena, her stepmother, and Vivian, her stepsister, were fussing over last-minute details. Helena's sharp eyes fell on her immediately. The older woman froze, lips tightening before curling into a mocking smile. "And what do you think you're wearing, Amara?" Amara's stomach dropped, but she forced a polite tone. "It's my dress for the wedding." "I thought." "You thought." Helena cut in with a laugh that carried venom. "This is not a party for you to prance around pretending to be important. Take that off. Now." Vivian, draped in an emerald gown that glittered under the chandelier, let out a cruel giggle. "Mama, you didn't tell me our maid wanted to be a guest too." She tilted her head, looking Amara up and down. "It's almost cute, like a child trying on her mother's clothes." Heat flooded Amara's cheeks. "I'm not a maid. I'm Uche's sister." "His sister?" Helena hissed, stepping closer until Amara could smell her heavy perfume. "Don't forget your place. You're under this roof because of my mercy. Today is about Uche and Vivian's shine, not about some forgotten daughter trying to draw attention." She reached for a folded apron on the sofa and thrust it into Amara's hands. "Put this on. You'll be helping the catering staff." Amara stared at the apron, the humiliation burning deeper than any slap. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. "But Papa would have wanted me." "Papa is dead," Helena snapped, voice like a whip. "And while I am alive, I decide what this family looks like in public. Do not embarrass me." Vivian smirked, snatching the apron and holding it against Amara's gown. "It clashes terribly, but don't worry, no one will be looking at you anyway." For a moment, Amara's fingers tightened on her gown as though she could hold onto the dignity she had stitched into it. Her eyes flickered toward the staircase where Uche appeared, adjusting his tie. Relief rushed through her. Her brother would stop this. "You had to." "Uche," she whispered, turning toward him, hope bright in her eyes. "Please tell them. Tell them I should be at the family table. I'm your sister." But Uche only paused, his gaze darting awkwardly between Helena and Amara. He gave a small, nervous laugh. "Amara, don't make a scene. Mama just wants everything perfect. Just help out today, all right? It's only one day." Her heart cracked like glass. Only one day? Only the most important day of his life, and he was ashamed to let her be seen beside him. Her throat tightened as Helena and Vivian exchanged victorious smiles. Helena shoved the apron into her chest. "Put it on. We don't have time for your tantrums." Tears stung Amara's eyes, but she swallowed them down. She wanted to scream, to fight, but the weight of years of silence pressed on her shoulders. Instead, she turned away, fingers trembling as she tied the apron around her waist. Her lavender gown, the one she had sacrificed meals to afford, was hidden under the plain cloth, reduced to nothing. The wedding hall sparkled with chandeliers, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Guests in glittering lace and expensive suits danced, their joy echoing through the air. Amara moved quietly between the tables, carrying trays of champagne, her head bowed to hide her shame. Whispers followed her. Some guests raised brows, others chuckled openly. "Isn't that Uche's sister?" one woman asked. "Why is she serving like staff?" A man replied with a laugh, "Maybe they couldn't afford extra waiters." Vivian floated across the hall like royalty, greeting guests with radiant smiles. Whenever she passed Amara, she whispered a new insult. "Don't forget the corner near the stage, maid." Or, "Careful not to spill, this isn't your cheap little neighborhood bar." Each word pierced Amara deeper. Her arms ached from carrying trays, but it was her heart that felt heavier. Each time she glanced at the family table, her chest squeezed tighter. Her seat, the one she had looked forward to, was occupied by one of Vivian's giggling friends. She had been erased, forgotten, cast aside. As she wiped spilled wine from the polished floor, she caught sight of her reflection in the glass surface. Apron stained, sweat clinging to her temples, eyes red. Not the sister of the groom. Not the daughter of her father. Just the servant. Her mind screamed, "Why did I even come?" Still, beneath the humiliation, a small ember of defiance flickered. She thought of her father, the man who taught her that dignity wasn't given, it was held. She clenched her jaw, whispering silently, "They may shame me today, but this is not my forever." And as the hall erupted in laughter at another of Vivian's jokes at her expense, Amara tightened her grip on the tray. She didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning, the spark of a fire that would one day burn brighter than any chandelier in that hall. The music swelled as the bride and groom entered the glittering hall, and applause thundered through the crowd. Amara stood at the far corner, clutching a tray of champagne flutes. Her hands trembled so much that one nearly slipped. She took a deep breath, forcing her eyes to stay on the bubbles rising in each glass rather than on her family's laughter at the head table. Vivian spotted her from across the room. With a wicked grin, she clinked her glass loudly and waved Amara over. "Maid of honor," she called, her voice slicing through the chatter. The crowd chuckled, assuming it was a joke. But Vivian wasn't joking. Amara walked slowly to the table, praying her cheeks weren't as red as they felt. She bent forward carefully, offering drinks. Vivian deliberately tilted her glass too far, letting champagne spill down Amara's arm. "Oh dear," Vivian said in mock concern, "you really should be more careful. Guests expect clean service." The table roared with laughter. Amara stiffened, her lips pressing tight. Helena's sharp voice cut in, "Wipe it up, Amara. Quickly." With a cloth, Amara dabbed at the mess, kneeling on the floor as Vivian's phone flashed above her. She looked up just in time to see Vivian snapping a selfie, her in her gown beaming while Amara crouched at her feet like a servant. "Perfect," Vivian whispered. "Social media will love this." The picture spread through the hall like wildfire. Guests leaned over their phones, chuckling. "Is that really his sister? Scrubbing the floor?" one whispered. "Uche should be ashamed," another murmured. But Uche just avoided her eyes, sipping his drink as though nothing was wrong. Amara's vision blurred with tears. She wanted to scream, to remind them all that she was the girl who worked 2 jobs to pay part of Uche's school fees when their father passed. But the words lodged in her throat, silenced by shame. At one table, however, a pair of eyes followed her closely, Michael's. While others laughed, he saw the tension in her jaw, the way her shoulders squared despite humiliation. Something in him stirred, though he said nothing yet. Later, as she passed through the crowd, Vivian blocked her path, clinking her glass again. "Smile, maid. Guests love a cheerful servant." Amara's lips trembled. "Vivian, please?" "Please what?" Vivian leaned close, whispering. "Know your place." She shoved an empty plate onto Amara's tray, nearly toppling it. The crowd chuckled again and Amara swallowed her pride, moving on. But inside something was breaking. As the reception continued, Amara's eyes drifted constantly to the family table. Her seat, her rightful place, remained occupied by one of Vivian's giggling friends who wasn't even family. Every time Amara looked, the girl threw her a smug little smirk, as though to remind her she had been replaced. Her heart throbbed painfully. She remembered staying up nights years ago, sewing Uche's torn uniforms, skipping meals to make sure he had bus fare. She remembered how her father's last words had been, "Take care of each other." Yet here Uche was, laughing with his new wife while his sister was stripped of dignity. She carried another tray toward a group of men by the stage. One guest squinted. "Isn't that Uche's sister?" "Yes," another replied with a grin. "But apparently she's also tonight's cleaner." Their laughter erupted, stabbing her chest like knives. She forced herself not to drop the tray. As she passed the head table, Helena raised a finger. "Clear these plates." Amara hesitated. Vivian's friend leaned back in her chair, smirking. "You heard her. That's your job, right?" Swallowing hard, Amara collected the plates. For a second her eyes met Uche's. He shifted uncomfortably, then turned away. Betrayal pooled hot in her stomach. At the far end of the hall, Michael watched again. He didn't laugh. His brow furrowed as he studied her face, the quiet pain hidden beneath obedience. Something in her reminded him of his own climb from poverty, when he too had been dismissed as nothing. Amara bent over a table near the back, stacking plates. A deep voice startled her. "May I have a glass of water, please?" She looked up, meeting Michael's gaze for the first time. His presence struck her immediately, tall, composed, his dark suit tailored perfectly but his eyes soft. Not mocking like the others but observant. "Of course," she murmured, setting down the plates and handing him a glass. Their fingers brushed briefly and her chest tightened. "Thank you," he said, his voice calm. He studied her face, the damp curls clinging to her temples, the flicker of dignity in her eyes despite humiliation. He wanted to ask why she was serving, but before he could, Vivian's shrill voice pierced the air. "Amara, there's a spill by the cake table. Hop to it." Gasps and laughter followed. Amara's cheeks burned as she hurried away, leaving Michael's curious gaze fixed on her retreating form. He turned to the guest beside him. "Who is she?" "That?" the man chuckled. "The groom's sister. But, well, she's the embarrassment of the family. Better suited for scrubbing than sitting." Michael's jaw tightened. He looked back at the door Amara had disappeared through. An ache stirred in his chest. The evening wore on until Vivian, in her glittering gown, approached Amara carrying a glass of red wine. With a wicked smile, she tilted it just enough for crimson liquid to splash down Amara's lavender gown. "Oh no," Vivian gasped in mock horror. "Clean this up." The crowd roared with laughter. Amara froze, staring down at the ruined dress she had saved for months to buy. Her chest heaved, anger mixing with heartbreak. Helena snapped, "Do as you're told, Amara." Something inside Amara snapped. She ripped off the apron, dropped the tray and stood tall. "I am not your servant," she shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. The hall fell silent, stunned. Her eyes swept the crowd, at Vivian's smirk, Helena's fury, Uche's shame. With tears blurring her vision, she turned and walked out, leaving gasps and whispers behind. For the first time she had chosen her dignity. The city night wrapped around her as she stumbled down the street, the sound of music fading behind. Tears streamed freely now, blurring the neon lights. Couples in glittering outfits passed her, stepping into luxury cars. She walked alone, shoes pinching, gown stained. Her chest hurt, but a strange freedom came with each step. She whispered through sobs, "Never again. Never again will I be their doormat." She sank onto a bench under a flickering streetlight, hugging her knees, trying to steady her breathing. For once, the silence was kinder than her family. Back at the hall, Michael had quietly excused himself. He couldn't shake the image of Amara's eyes as she walked out. He stepped into the night, scanning the street. Minutes later, he found her on the bench, shoulders shaking. He approached slowly, removing his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. Amara stiffened, looking up. Her eyes widened in shock. You followed me?" "I couldn't just sit and watch," Michael said softly. "You looked like you needed someone." Her lips parted, but no words came. No one had ever noticed her pain before. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of cars filling the air. Finally Michael spoke. "Why were you serving at your own brother's wedding?" Amara laughed bitterly. "Because Helena, my stepmother, decided that's all I'm good for. And my brother agreed." Her voice cracked as she told him everything. The gown she had saved for, the empty seat, the spilled wine. She expected pity, but when she glanced at him, she saw admiration. "You walked out," he said firmly. "That takes strength. Most people would have stayed and bowed lower." Amara blinked, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For the first time that night, she didn't feel invisible. The next morning, Amara sat nervously in a cafe when Michael walked in, dressed in a crisp shirt. He smiled warmly, pulling out the chair opposite her. "You came," she whispered. "I said I would," he replied. Over steaming cups of coffee they talked for hours. Amara shared her struggles, losing her father, working odd jobs, living under Helena's roof. Michael shared his own rise from nothing, growing up in poverty before building his empire. "You're stronger than you think, Amara," he said, leaning forward. "And people like Helena and Vivian? They don't define you." Her chest warmed. For the first time in years, she felt seen not as a servant, but as a woman of worth. By Sunday morning, whispers about the wedding humiliation had spread beyond the hall. Some guests shared Vivian's cruel selfie online, while others gossiped about the mysterious billionaire who had walked out after Amara. Helena sipped tea in the grand living room, smirking. "She'll crawl back soon. She has nowhere else to go." Vivian twirled her phone. "But Mama, people keep asking why Michael left after her. They're saying he looked angry." Helena waved dismissively. "Michael? Just another guest. Uche will explain." But upstairs, Uche sat on his bed, scrolling through comments. "The groom's sister treated like a servant? Heartless family. Who was the billionaire who defended her? His stomach tightened. His business contacts hated bad press. Meanwhile, across town, Amara sat in Michael's sleek office, staring at the skyline. I don't understand why people are talking about me, she murmured. Michael leaned back. Because what happened was wrong. And because people saw dignity where your family tried to bury you. She looked at him, surprised. Dignity? I felt like trash. You walked out instead of bowing lower, Michael said. That's dignity. His words stayed with her, even as the city buzzed with rumors. That week, Uche paced nervously outside a glass tower, waiting for his investor meeting. His business needed a major loan, and this deal could make or break him. He entered the boardroom and froze. At the head of the table sat Michael, calm and unreadable. Mr. Uche, Michael greeted. I understand you're seeking significant funding. Uche swallowed. Yes, sir. It would mean everything to my company. Michael flipped through the proposal without expression. Interesting. But before I decide, there's something I need to clarify. How do you treat those closest to you? Uche blinked. Excuse me? Michael's gaze hardened. I was at your wedding. I saw your sister. How you allowed her to be humiliated. If you treat your own blood like that, how will you treat your business partners? Uche stammered. That was a misunderstanding. Was it? Michael asked coolly. Because the world saw it too. He closed the file. I invest in character as much as business. Right now I see none. Uche left trembling. He hadn't realized that his sister's dignity was tied to his survival. Helena paced the living room that evening, her bracelets jangling. Do you know who that man is? Michael Chukwuemeka. The Michael. Billionaire investor. Vivian gasped. Wait, that's the man who followed Amara out? Yes. Helena snapped. And if he controls Uche's deal, then we are finished. Uche slumped on the sofa, defeated. He's already rejecting me, Mama? He said I lack character. Helena pressed her temples. We must fix this. Amara is our only hope. Vivian scoffed. Apologize to her? The family maid. Helena's glare could cut glass. If she controls Michael's ear, then yes. Swallow your pride. But Amara, living quietly in Michael's guest house for now, was not fooled when Helena called. My dear, Helena cooed, we only wanted you to help at the wedding. It wasn't personal. Amara's voice was calm but firm. You humiliated me. And Uche let you. That's not something an apology can erase. Helena's mask slipped. You ungrateful girl, she caught herself, forcing a laugh. I mean, let's not drag family matters. Come home. Amara hung up, her resolve hardening. Days later, Michael invited Helena, Uche and Vivian to his office. They walked in, trying to look composed but trembling under the polished glass and leather chairs. Michael leaned forward. Let me be clear. I have no interest in investing in Uche's company. But I do believe in Amara's vision. The family stiffened. Amara blinked. My vision? Michael smiled at her. The catering business you once told me about. Supplying dignified service run with respect. I want to invest in that. Helena choked on her own breath. Vivian's jaw dropped. You'd give her? Vivian stammered. Yes, Michael said firmly. Because she has integrity. Something this family seems to lack. Helena's voice quivered. Mr. Michael, surely you can reconsider? My decision is final, he cut in. For the first time the power shifted. Amara wasn't their servant anymore, she was the key. Weeks later, Amara walked into her family's compound again. But this time she wasn't carrying trays or wearing an apron. She wore a tailored navy blue suit, her hair swept into a sleek bun, her steps confident. Michael walked beside her, his presence commanding silence. Relatives who had once whispered now gawked. That's her? One cousin muttered. The one they mocked? Amara kept her head high as Helena appeared at the door, smile frozen. Amara, my dear. Welcome home. Amara's eyes didn't waver. Home stopped being here the day you erased me from the family table. Michael added, we're here for business, not sentiment. Every whisper in the hall stung Helena and Vivian. The maid had returned, not alone but with power. At a family meeting, Helena tried one last act of control. Uche's company is family. If you truly care, you'll convince Michael to reconsider. Michael stood, hands clasped behind his back. Actually, I came to announce something. I will be investing, not in Uche, but in Amara. Gasps rippled through the room. She will launch her own catering business and I will provide the capital. Vivian slammed her fist on the table. You're choosing her over us? Michael's gaze was steel. I'm choosing integrity over arrogance. Amara looked at her stepmother, voice steady. I won't be your servant anymore. From today I stand on my own. The launch of Amara's catering company was dazzling. Guests in tailored suits sampled gourmet dishes, praising the elegant setup. The staff, dressed smartly, worked with pride. Amara moved gracefully through the room, welcoming clients. Gone was the girl with stained aprons. This was a woman in control. Reporters snapped photos, asking, "Is it true you were treated like a servant at your brother's wedding?" Amara smiled softly. Yes, and that taught me why dignity matters. In my company, every worker is respected. Her words struck a chord, spreading online. Her bookings filled faster than she could have imagined. Watching from the sidelines, Michael's chest swelled with pride. You were always capable, Amara. You just needed the world to see it. A journalist approached Amara weeks later. I want to publish your story, the sister who was forced to serve at her brother's wedding but rose above it. Amara hesitated, then nodded. Tell it truthfully. The article went viral. Headlines screamed, From Maid to Mogul, the untold story of Amara Okoye. Public sympathy poured in. Social media erupted with support. She deserves everything she's built, one comment read. Her family should be ashamed, said another. Meanwhile, Helena and Vivian became the subject of ridicule. The women who mocked their own blood, blogs sneered. Their polished social media posts were flooded with scorn. At night, Helena wept silently, realizing her grip on the family's image was gone. Vivian refused to surrender. She whispered to contacts, spreading lies. Amara isn't running that business, Michael is. She's just his pet project. But Michael anticipated her. He released documents proving Amara's ownership, contracts with her name signed boldly. Clients withdrew from Vivian's small ventures, calling her toxic. Invitations stopped arriving. One evening, Vivian stormed into Amara's office. You think you've won? You only have this because of Michael. Amara rose slowly, her voice calm. No, Vivian. I have this because I endured what you couldn't break. Michael invested, but I built. Vivian's face crumpled. You were supposed to stay beneath me. Amara stepped closer. And you were supposed to be my sister. Instead you chose cruelty. Now you live with the consequences. Vivian left in tears, her empire of mockery collapsing. The rain poured heavily that Friday evening, drumming against the tin roof of Helena's veranda. For the first time in years, her house felt cold, not because of the weather but because the silence inside was deafening. Vivian sat on the sofa, scrolling endlessly through her phone, but every message was another rejection. No invitations, no business partnerships, no friends offering sympathy. Just silence and scorn. Uche paced the floor like a caged animal. His once booming company was bleeding. Investors had pulled out, contracts had been canceled, and whispers in the market branded him unreliable. He rubbed his temples. We're finished, Mama. Do you hear me? Finished. Helena's hands shook as she clutched her rosary beads. She had prayed for years for power, for control, but now all her influence was slipping like sand through her fingers. There must be a way, she muttered. There must be a way to turn her heart. Vivian slammed her phone onto the table. You mean Amara? She sneered, her voice bitter. After what we did. She won't listen. She doesn't need us anymore. Then we will make her need us, Helena snapped. But her voice cracked. For the first time she wasn't commanding, she was begging the air. At that moment Uche stopped pacing. He looked at his mother with hollow eyes. She saved me once before, Mama. When Papa died, it was her money that kept me in school. Do you remember? She gave me everything she had, and I let you convince me to turn my back on her. The truth hung heavy in the air. Helena's lips trembled, but she said nothing. Vivian scoffed, crossing her arms. And now you want us to go crawling to her? Uche's eyes hardened. Yes, because without her, we are nothing. Across town, Amara sat in her newly furnished office, reviewing invoices with her staff. The elegant glass-walled building bore her company's name in bold letters. Dignity Catering Services. Each day her phone buzzed with new bookings, from elite weddings to government banquets. Her assistant, Adiz, entered with a smile. Madam, the governor's wife just confirmed you for her charity gala. Amara's eyes widened. That's huge. She whispered a quick prayer of thanks. All right, let's make sure the team is ready. Her joy was interrupted by a knock on the door. She glanced up, expecting another client. Instead, her blood ran cold. Helena, Uche, and Vivian stood at the threshold, drenched from the rain, their expressions tight with desperation. Amara, Helena began, her tone sickly sweet. My daughter. Amara stiffened, but her voice was cool. Why are you here? Uche stepped forward, hands raised. Please just hear us out. Amara leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. You erased me from your family table, mocked me in front of hundreds, and laughed as I scrubbed floors. And now you stand in my office calling me daughter? Why? Helena's lips trembled. She dropped to her knees, shocking even Vivian. Because we are ruined, Amara. Uche's company is sinking, Vivian has lost everything, and only you can save us. Her voice broke. Please. We are family. For a moment, the room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Amara's chest tightened, not with pity but with the bitter memory of that night. Family? She echoed, her voice sharp. Where was family when I stood humiliated at Uche's wedding? Where was family when Vivian spilled wine on me and laughed? Where was family when Papa's seat at the table was denied to me? Vivian snapped, unable to hold her tongue. You're acting high and mighty because of Michael. Don't forget, without him you're nothing. Amara stood slowly, her eyes blazing. Without Michael, I am still the woman who endured your cruelty and built something from the ashes. He invested, yes, but I worked. I built. I sacrificed. She stepped closer until Vivian had to look away. And you will never erase that. Uche's voice cracked. Amara, I was wrong. I let Mama and Vivian decide for me. I was weak. Please, I beg you. If you don't help, I'll lose everything. Amara's heart twisted. She remembered the boy she once carried on her back when he was too tired to walk home from school. She remembered feeding him her portion of yams so he wouldn't sleep hungry. But then she remembered how he turned away as she scrubbed floors. Her voice was steady. You chose them over me, Uche. And choices have consequences. Tears slipped down Uche's face. He dropped to his knees beside Helena. I am begging you, sister. Amara's assistant shifted uncomfortably, whispering, Madam? Amara raised a hand. No, her voice sliced through the air. I will not rescue people who laughed while I drowned. You wanted me invisible, now live as though I don't exist. Helena's wail filled the room, raw and broken. Vivian turned away, jaw clenched, shame and rage battling in her eyes. Amara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, it was Michael checking in. For the first time in years she felt completely in control. She turned back to her family. Leave my office. And if you ever come here again, it will not be as family. It will be as trespassers. Helena tried to reach for her hand, but Amara stepped back. Security escorted them out, their wet footprints marking a trail of defeat across the polished floor. That night, Amara sat in her apartment, staring out at the glittering city lights. A storm still rumbled outside, but inside her chest there was peace. Michael arrived quietly, placing 2 cups of steaming tea on the table. How was today? He asked, though his eyes already knew. Amara exhaled. They begged. On their knees. Michael studied her face. And how do you feel? She thought for a long moment. Sad. Angry. But mostly, free. For the first time, I chose myself over their chains. Michael smiled softly, touching her hand. That's what dignity is. Not revenge. Freedom. Amara's lips curved faintly. Then I am finally free. Outside, the rain slowed and the night cleared. Inside, Amara felt lighter than she ever had, even as her family sank into the consequences of their cruelty. For once, she wasn't the one desperate. The night of the charity gala glowed like a jewel across Lagos. The hall shimmered with golden chandeliers, velvet drapes, and rows of photographers waiting outside for the city's elite. This was not just another social gathering, it was the event of the year, hosted by the governor's wife herself. Amara adjusted her gown in the mirror before stepping out of the car. The dress was a masterpiece, a floor-length, midnight blue gown that hugged her figure gracefully, with silver embroidery across the neckline. Her natural 4C hair was styled into an elegant bun, accentuated with diamond pins. Every detail radiated the power and dignity she had fought for. Beside her, Michael stood tall in a classic tuxedo. He offered his hand. Ready? Amara smiled softly. I've been ready for this moment my whole life. The doors swung open and the cameras flashed wildly. Guests gasped as whispers spread through the crowd. Isn't that the girl from the wedding scandal? She looks like a queen. That's Amara Okoye, the new business sensation. Amara walked gracefully into the hall, her heels clicking against the marble floor. For the first time she wasn't shrinking in the shadows, every eye followed her. At their table near the front, Helena, Uche and Vivian sat stiffly, having forced their way into the gala through old connections. Helena's painted smile faltered when she saw Amara enter. Vivian's jaw dropped. Impossible, Vivian muttered. She can't be the center of attention. She can't. But she was. Amara moved through the crowd with poise, greeting dignitaries, shaking hands with business leaders. Everywhere she went, respect followed. When the governor's wife took the stage to speak, she gestured warmly toward Amara. Tonight, we celebrate not only charity but dignity. And who better to represent that than a woman whose story has touched us all? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Amara Okoye. Thunderous applause filled the hall as Amara stepped onto the stage. Her hands trembled slightly as she took the microphone, but her voice rang clear. Good evening, everyone. A few months ago, I was not standing in ballrooms like this. I was wiping spilled wine off the floor of a wedding, my own brother's wedding. Not because I lacked worth, but because those I called family chose to erase me. That night, I walked out humiliated, but I also walked out free. Free from the chains of their cruelty. Free to rediscover the strength my late father always told me I carried. And today I stand before you not as someone defined by shame, but as a woman who built something from that pain. Dignity Catering Services was born out of humiliation, but it thrives on respect. Every worker in my company is valued. No one is beneath anyone else. Because dignity should never be negotiable. The hall erupted in applause. Amara's chest swelled, her eyes glistening. At the table, Helena dabbed at her eyes, torn between regret and envy. Uche stared at his hands, shame burning his cheeks. Vivian scowled, her nails digging into her palm. After the speech, reporters surrounded Amara. One asked, "What would you say to those who once treated you like a servant?" Amara smiled serenely. "I would say thank you. Because their cruelty pushed me to discover my strength. They thought they were breaking me, but they were making me." The quote spread across social media within minutes. Later in the evening, as music filled the hall, Helena gathered the courage to approach. "Amara," her voice wavered. "That speech, your father would be proud." Amara's gaze was steady, unreadable. "Perhaps. But he would not be proud of how you treated me." Helena's lips quivered. "I was wrong. We all were. Please forgive us." Amara inhaled deeply. "Forgiveness is not a word. It's a change. Show me change, not apologies." She turned away gracefully, leaving Helena trembling in her silence. Vivian tried next, bitterness dripping from her tongue. "Enjoy it while it lasts. Without Michael, you're nothing." Amara met her glare. "Without Michael, I am still everything you could never be, respected." Vivian flushed scarlet, speechless. As the night wound down, Michael joined Amara at the balcony overlooking the city lights. "You were extraordinary tonight," he said softly. Amara leaned against the railing, her eyes glistening with tears she hadn't let fall during her speech. "Do you know what I was thinking up there?" "What?" "That girl in the apron. The one everyone laughed at. I wanted to tell her, hold on. They'll clap for you one day." Michael smiled, placing his hand gently over hers. "And they did. Because you chose yourself." Amara turned to him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you, for seeing me when no one else did." Michael shook his head. "No, Amara. You saw yourself first. I only reminded you." They shared a quiet smile, the kind that needed no more words. As the gala ended, guests continued to whisper her name. Investors lined up to speak with her, journalists begged for interviews, and young women looked at her with admiration. By the time she stepped back into the car, Amara realized something profound. She was no longer just the girl humiliated at her brother's wedding. She was a symbol, a woman who refused to be erased, who turned pain into power. Back at home, Amara stood before her mirror again. This time, the woman staring back wasn't trembling in a lavender gown, desperate for a seat at a table that didn't want her. She was radiant, powerful. The apron that once symbolized her humiliation was folded neatly in her drawer. She didn't keep it as a wound, but as a reminder of how far she had come, and how she had sworn never to let anyone strip her dignity again. With a deep breath, she whispered to her reflection, "I am the woman they couldn't ignore." And this time the world agreed. Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.